right.
Then what's with this script on the table? Hello, my name is Matt. Please repeat word after word.
Matt, you can't mention these talking points.
Off of this.
Okay. Prompter.
These are the talking points for the show.
Yeah. You know, I'm pretty bad at talking just on the fly. I have a real problem with that. 1,400 videos I've made.
1,400
Cheers.
videos.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Cheers,
guys.
Cheers.
There's no clink from my cup. It's just paper.
It's okay. All right. Well, first of all, Matt, I want to say I really enjoy your videos. And I was going to say this to you earlier before, but I wanted to save it for the show, is that your videos actually were the first ones that I came across that actually gave me a lot of hope on YouTube. Because it's really easy to go down a really dark rabbit hole on YouTube, especially if you make the mistake of going into the comment sections and reading comments, particularly when it comes to issues on China, right? And it's so skewed one way, and there's so much misinformation and conspiracy out there. And then a guy like you comes along, kind of sharing your videos and your opinions, and it just gave me a lot of hope in the sense that, like, there are people that are willing to kind of speak the truth and speak their minds, and who are actually here and spend a lot of time in China instead of somewhere else speculating on what's happening here. And that really gave me a lot of hope in that there is a community of people that think like I do, that have share similar opinions as I do, right? And really the basis of all this is that there seems to be a huge disconnect between a lot of kind of what the media says on China and opinion pieces and all this to what's really happening on the ground here. And I just want to say thank you, number one, for sharing the videos that you do. And, you know, how did you get started in all this? Like, because I don't think you started as a travel vlog. You never started like being political or anything like that, right?
I still am a travel vlogger.
Yeah.
It's just there's a pandemic. You know, I appreciate. You know what? Like, honestly, what you said means a lot, because there's might be some people out there with certain agendas, you know, pro-China or anti-China, or some sort of narrative that they're trying to push because, you know, they might want to influence. I literally, these are my thoughts, my opinions. And so when I started traveling, and I actually made a video a while back when I first started saying that if you watch this channel, you're not going to get some crazy political thing, because like, I consider myself progressive. Left or right, I don't know, but I'm progressive. I have progressive values. And I thought that through my travels, by exposing people to the real life around the world, they might be able to see my perspective on the world without having me have to announce it. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot of right-wingers that like cycling, they like travel, they like these kind of things. And so they watch my videos, and I'm like, I would really love to impart on them some of the positives of what I deem are progressive positives.
Like almost like indirectly, just through your videos.
Yeah. And so it's sort of just through osmosis, you know, just slowly help them to maybe not change their worldviews, but just grow, evolve, you know, just like I've evolved. I'm going to evolve after our meeting, you know, slightly with our opinions and thoughts from all of you. That's how I feel we all grow, is by sharing. And you're not going to grow if you're alienating people. And like you said, I like that you have similar opinions to me is great, but it's also good to have people without the same opinions, because if you, like we were talking about before that started, you know, you start a bubble.
Echo chamber.
An echo chamber. Right. And all your biases are confirmed. And I knew that because I only hang out with people that only think, you know, and I don't think that's good. So I was like, well, maybe I can do these travel videos, and then people can impart whatever knowledge you want from it. But after COVID, when I paused my cycle tour, I'm normally cycling a 3-wheeled recumbent trike around the world. My intention is to cycle from China all the way to the United States in like 15 or so years. It started with 5 years, and then it's 10 years. Now it's 15 years. Now with pandemic, who the hell knows now, you know? But I came back to Ningbo, which is just south of here, south of Shanghai, if you guys don't know. And the pandemic was raging in Wuhan, and nobody knew exactly how bad it was going to be. And I knew that if anybody is going to have the toughest time with a pandemic, it's going to be the one where it started. because as soon as you know it exists, from that point on, you can prepare yourself. China was the place where it did not exist, and then suddenly it existed.
It was blindsided. by
It was, and they had to create laws, they had to create systems, they had to create, they had the genome and all of this stuff.
They had to figure out what it was.
They had to
first.
figure out what the hell it was, And so as it was raging around the end of January, my daughter is kept in her house. She can't go out and play. We're all under these restrictions. And I'm like, we had just traveled to America earlier, so they all had their 10-year visas, so there was no paperwork issue. And so I was like, hell, why don't we just get out of here? Let's just go to America. I mean, I'm not a medical professional. There's a lot of people like, you abandoned China in their time of, you are a quitter. There's a lot of people that actually said that, which I thought was crazy. Listen, it's like if there's a tragedy, the people that are taking care of that tragedy are going to say, if you're not involved in a tragedy, get away from it so that we can take care of the problem. And I was like, well, let's just leave China and then just see how it goes. We'll go to, you know what? You know who's going to take care of this real well? America. So let's go back to America. And so I went to America, and
this is January, right?
This is February 2nd, the day Trump had his quote. I'm literally making quote singles with my finger travel ban, which was total. Can I swear a little bit?
Yeah, you can swear
It was
all that you want.
bullshit. I left China on February 1st. And with my daughter and my wife, and we flew to O'Hare. O'Hare was the hub for the travel ban.
Yeah.
And so I videotaped the whole thing. I was sharing daily videos because I thought it was important. It was very pertinent. Yeah. And so I landed in O'Hare, and me and Annie, my wife, we had our masks on the plane. My wife was like, "Don't eat any in-flight meals. Keep that mask on your face." And so we landed in O'Hare, and then when we got out, we were all speculating. Okay, I hope Trump lets us in. We hadn't been to Wuhan, so we've got that. We're ready to answer questions, and we got X and Y. If Y happens to Z, and blah blah blah. Then we walk in, and nothing.
It's like normal.
It was. We walked in. There was no hazmat suits. There was barely any masks. The only masks were from us on the plane. Other Chinese people who were like, oh, this is going to be serious. And so we walked in. When you go through the customs check and you're kind of like, you're waiting in line and snaking, there was one of these TV screens that was up hanging from the ceiling. And it had a rolling still image, warnings. Don't forget to grab your belongings, blah, 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 just stupid stuff. And one of the 5 screens that were showing every 10 seconds or so was if you've been to China been to Wuhan within the last 15 days, self-quarantine, if you can. It was if you want, honor code. And then we went up to the checkout guy and the customs guy, and he was a ABC, American-born Chinese, or ABA, American-born Asian, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "We haven't been to Wuhan in 15 days." I'm like
you're ready for like the Spanish Inquisition here.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, your daughter? Oh, my daughter's the same age." I'm like, "Cut the bullshit. Yeah. You're a really nice guy." But you guys don't understand what's we flew away because we thought I was looking forward to some serious consequences.
Serious draconian shit.
Right. I was ready for it. It's what you need to do in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So when we left, we weren't encouraged to quarantine. We weren't encouraged to anything. We literally got an Airbnb for 15 days right adjacent to the airport, and we ordered Amazon food deliveries for the whole 15 days. We did that voluntarily. There was nobody that told us. I didn't want to bring COVID to my family. It was asymptomatic. We knew that by then. So the long story to tie together, I flew back. We stayed in America for like a month until March 23rd, and we flew back to China because we were like, oh my God, China's treating this with the respect it deserves, and America just doesn't even give a shit. It's going to be horrible. And tragically, I was confirmed, in a lot of ways. I mean, every day is just like a mass casualty event on a huge scale. And so you ask like politics and stuff and these stories that I shared, and I was like, the barrier that I had erected around my political opinions and my cultural and sociological opinions on the world, it was too thick. And I felt like I'm like, people need to know the world that I see. Maybe I'm not right. I'll always say, you give me new information, I will concede. But there was so many things that I'm like, oh my God, the world needs to know. The world needs to see China. World needs, so I started opening up and making more political slanted videos and more like, China's doing this right. I don't say China's doing this right, because China's perfect. I'm saying China's doing this right. Why don't Why don't we start to do that China thing that's right? If America was doing something right in a circumstance, I'd say that too,
You're not letting your personal opinion. We don't want to let our personal opinions get in the way of understanding how different countries are doing things differently. Like, no country can be 100% right, and no country can be 100% wrong. And by, just taking such a personal view of things, we are very closed-minded.
Well,
Yeah.
Did you feel a need? Was there because you start your travel vlog and you go around and at the time before when you're shooting your videos, most of your videos are about China because that's where you live, and you travel around China shooting these videos with really no other agenda than really to just share the beauty and positivity of the places you see, or not if you don't see those things. Did you feel like a need to kind of almost defend your position and your experiences because you were getting attacked online, or did that come after you started being a little more political?
Well, I didn't start making videos in order to influence anybody. I made video, and this is one of the reasons why I'm happy in, there's certain people in the YouTube realm that I wonder if they're actually happy with the product they produce, because they might be like cornering themselves or painting themselves into a certain position. I made my videos. I didn't say I'm going to get rich off of these videos. I didn't say anything like that. I'm going to be a superstar. I said I'd like to share my stories. I'd like to share my stories because I have a horrible memory. And if I look at the past and I try and remember significant moments in my past, I have a really tough time grasping them pre-video. So when I started thinking, well, I want to climb Everest, I'm like, this is going to be probably the most epic thing I will ever do. I decided at one point I'm going to cycle around the world. Along the way, cycling is just a piece of it. I mean, climb Everest. I filled a bucket list. I said, I'm going to do all the most incredible things. And I said, I want to retain this for myself and secondarily for anybody that might be interested in watching. Way I'm going to finance it, I'll do commercial videos. Like, I'll go to a hotel and I'll say, do you want a video of their hotel? I've got a really good, radio voice. I can do a video for you. And my objective was going to be doing that. And then I'll just share my life on my YouTube channel, for me primarily, for everybody else secondarily. So as the channel started to grow, I was like, oh my gosh, the channel itself can monetize. So this is pretty incredible. I dropped the commercial video idea and I was like, I'll focus on making more videos of my life, because as much as they're important to me, it seems like they're helpful for other people to see the world. And so growing in that way was really, really healthy for a guy that's kind of sharing his life. Because if you start a channel because you want to be a big YouTuber and you want to be rich on YouTube, then if you're guided by that principle, you might sacrifice yourself in the beginning phases, and also you'll be very disappointed because YouTube is brutal. I mean, I've produced 1,400 videos. If you really want to make it successful, it's like a 1% of 1%.
Well, you got to be slave to the algorithm, right?
For sure. Yeah. And so by me not being, obviously I understand the algorithm a lot more now than I used to, but I've never enslaved myself to it. Yeah. If I want to share my opinion, I share my opinion.
That was never your compass.
That was never my compass.
Yeah.
So Matt, for listeners that aren't so familiar with your work, I'm curious, can you share sort of the general background of a little bit more about the travel videos and sort of what that's all about and how you structure them and where you go, a little, you have that, what is it called? The trike,
recumbent trike.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then sort of what were you doing before this? I'm kind of curious and why you came to China.
Okay. My dad was hard worker, like 25 hours a day kind of guy. You know, he's a carpenter, electrician, a plumber, and a mechanic. And he ground himself into the ground every day to support me and my 2 sisters and the family. And he always taught me, build a better mousetrap, follow your dreams, don't slave away, do something you love, you know, this kind of things. These really powerful moral guiding principles of life. And I'm very happy that he was able to instill that in me. He's also an inventor. And he, there's stories, he used to work as a bus mechanic on the Detroit transit system where he'd fix buses. And everybody was pretty lazy at the warehouse because they were getting paid salary and everything. They'd hated my dad because my dad would be constantly inventing things to do jobs easier and quicker. You know, he'd be like, you know, that transmission you drop out, you know, you need a cradle that's going to take that transmission. It's going to be, you know, a little bit more, make the job easier. And so he'd make this like welded cradle to transport the transmission to the repair room. And everybody be like, yo, man, don't do that shit, man. We don't need that, you know. That's going to make us have to do 2 transmissions instead of 1, you know. And he's like, isn't that a great thing, you know? And he imparted that on me. So I started creating products fairly early on. I invented a product. It was called an antenna acrobat. It was a plastic character that clipped onto your car antenna and hung on sideways. Now, you might have seen some. They had crazy hair, all sorts of different colors. Those are mine. I sold, I don't know, like a $500,000 or $1 million of them. And they were very, listen, it was education. It was a loss. It was a loss, but it was a school of hard knocks, you know, one of the many bumps along that road. And I learned manufacturing. I learned plastic injection molding. I learned marketing. I learned packaging. Because I did it all myself when I was like 15, 16
And you
years
grew
old.
up in which
Detroit.
city? In Detroit.
Wow, you were only
Motor City.
15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad was my partner. And so he mortgaged the house, and I basically, you know, remortgaged the house, and I lost everything. You know, I paid him back over time. But like in that time, you know, the whole family believed in education. So we had like, if you want to go to university, you go to university. And for me, I wanted to be sort of an entrepreneur. And I thought this was where I wanted to go. I was very nervous. Like the way I talk with you guys right now was not the Matt when I was 15, 16 years old. I was shaking, my hands would shake and I would sweaty palms and everything.
That was like when we started the podcast.
The more you do it, you know, the easier it gets, you know. And so I started creating products. My antenna acrobats were the first one, but I started making products for casinos in Detroit because they were ordering all sorts of crazy stuff. Because when you go to a casino, you instantly buy one of those cards, ID cards, to do the machines. That card knows your birthday. Your birthday is probably the most important date, personally, for that casino to know. They want to cater. They want to have you celebrate your birthday at this casino. So your birthday comes around and they'll say, hey, Joe Schmo, we got a free gift for you. Come on into the casino. It's a custom-made coffee mug or wallet or something. So they need to, and they have hundreds of thousands of people on these lists, you know. So they want to have creative, interesting things that people will be like, ooh, let's go to the casino and we'll get that free $5 wallet. And, you know, while we're here, why don't we just put a couple of $100 in the machine? Because, you know, we're a little lucky. Our lucky day. It's our birthday. And then they leave, you know, $200 lost. And it's a win-win for the casino. So I was catering to those casinos and making products for them. And I was also a valet at the casino. I've had 60 plus jobs in my life, like lots of jobs. And, I think it was around the time that the bottom was falling out of the economy, the housing crisis, you know, the big one. And Detroit was getting hit hard. So I decided I got to move. And then Vegas was a big casino city. And Vegas is good when the economy's bad, and it's good when the economy's good. I mean, people gamble for
no matter what,
multiple reasons, to get richer or to get rich. And so I moved to Vegas and I started catering to those places. And I started building other clients, making different products for different people. I also, along those times, learned that I could make products in China much cheaper and much more cost effective. And, you know, it's funny because we live in a time where they're like, China took all of our jobs, China took all of our opportunities. But I got to tell you what, they gave people opportunities too. People that run those businesses would not be able to run those businesses without being able to be competitive and doing products in China. It just was the way it is. Maybe it's because the government wasn't enforcing these things. That's beyond. That's an anger. The anger shouldn't be directed at China. It should be directed at the systems in place to make it so China was...
To the people who are actually buying the products, not the people who are making the products.
I mean, you go to Walmart, you fill your cart up with mostly China-made stuff, and then you say China took all of our... Well, you're part of the system that made that happen, you know. But anyways, I started learning how to use China as a vehicle to help people in America further their goals. And one of them was this product that was a baseball product, a safety product for baseball. And we made this product, and I was doing business in China through global sources, which was like this website like Taobao way back, Alibaba way back in the day. And we were doing this project in China, and he said, "I'd like to go to China to see this product made." This is a very long story. I'm going long-winded. Basically, we went to China, found out that the product was a disaster. The whole thing, the factory samples that they sent me were not the production quality samples, and my customer's sitting there, basically not crying, but he's like, red-faced. What am I going to do? He said, because I'm friends with my customers. They're not just customers. I care about them, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, I just ruined your whole thing. So we went back to the United States with head in my hands. And I said, I'm going to pay for whatever you need made here in the United States. We cannot do it in China. It's that ship has sailed. Let's try and make it right. So we made his products in the United States. I paid for it, I went from hero to zero. And I was thinking to myself, shit, man, I can't keep going like this. If I'm gonna continue to do business the way I'm doing it, I got to move to China. I got to understand what I did wrong and make sure that doesn't ever happen again. So I did. I sold everything and I moved to China. A lot of people moved to China on teaching contracts or a business contract as a quality control. But I moved to China
with nothing.
And
when was this? What year was this?
2009. Wow. So I found a place. My agent, Vera, was living in Ningbo. So I chose Ningbo. That's why I chose Ningbo. And so I went to Ningbo trying to make business. That was my goal. I wanted to be rich. I wasn't like greedy rich, but I was like, money is what I need in order to accomplish goals in life. And it didn't take long for me to realize that wasn't really the case. You know, you don't need so much money. You need, like, what do you need money for? To buy experiences, right? Because we're all a series of experiences. That's who we are. That's what we're made up of. So I was like, I need money to buy these experiences. But then I'm in China and I'm traveling. I'm taking train trips. I'm going to Indonesia and New Zealand and all these places. I'm like, this doesn't cost that much money. What am I waiting for? Let's just figure out a way to just get enough money to continue the experiences coming in, and that should be enough to make me happy. So then I started designing the trip around the world. My friend came to me with because I was going to think cycling or hitchhiking. I had all these ideas, and my friend was like, tadpole tricycle. I was like, that sounds like the worst form of transportation. Tadpole because it's wide in the front and narrow at the back. You know, so
and for our listeners, we know the trike is like the tricycle, like you're sitting down and you're pedaling, right?
Yeah, I mean, bicycle is 2-wheeled, tricycle is 3-wheeled. So I mean,
you're like on a couch and you're pedaling.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's super amazing. It's stable. You can record from it. You know, you can drink a beer if you want. I mean, I fly my drone and I videotape my vlogs, and all without even having to leave the seat, and I'm not even having to worry about balance issues. It's a really and it's so unique. I drive past, 90% of the people I drive past will never and have never seen me on a trike like that. So when you drive past somebody...
Well, you're pedaling past.
Yeah. Sorry. Qi and Kai. In Chinese, there's two words, Qi and Kai. I just learned that for the last 8 years I've been cycling, or 6 years I've been cycling, I've been telling people, well, Kai Zixingche, which is like I drive a bicycle, and I'm trying to get my Chinese, and they're like, Kai Zixingche. She's like, Qi. It's Qi Zixingche. I'm like, oh, shit. I've been telling everybody confusing things. So, yeah. So every time I pass by somebody, it's like you're sharing an experience that they will never have ever again or have never had. And it's so incredible. It's like a smile machine, you know?
Yeah.
So I started that travel journey, and I filled out a bucket list. And when I did that, before I had started, I was like, this bucket list will guide my journey. It's not just like trying to get from Ningbo, China to Los Angeles, which was the original plan, as straight as you want. It was, let's create nodes along the path where I can accomplish certain bucket list items. The largest cave system in the world in Vietnam, you know, learning an instrument in Indonesia, doing my, you know, and all this wingsuit jumping in New Zealand. You know, that was the objective, was what the objectives guided the trip. The trip was not the objective. You know what I mean? And so I've been kind of going, I got hit by a truck, going to run over by a truck. You know, I've torn meniscus. I had to climb Everest. My Annie's dad had cancer. My dad died. My, you know, grandma and grandpa died. It was just a pandemic, global pandemic. That was the last one I said. But you know, I'm just constantly dealt these kind of weird hands that are always kind of pushing me back here to China. And so that's why kind of I'm like, that's kind of the story. Not in a nutshell. That is a big nutshell.
The roundabout. But like, okay, if there is one thing, because going back to what Eric was saying, it's like giving people context about like, what are your videos all about? What are you all about? What is your channel, JaYoe Nation, all about? Yeah. If there is one thing that I can take away from, I think, your overall message of your channel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it would be travel can profoundly change your perspective and open up your mind. Like the importance of travel. Now, is that accurate to say?
Yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't say that was the intention. My intention was just to share my life. The result is that some people, like, can I share a story?
Yeah.
There's a guy on my, let's see if I can find his email. I'll read it aloud. It's incredible, actually. His name is Edward. Jeez, I wonder if I saved it.
Is this like a fan email?
Yeah.
Yeah, his name is Edward H. Verdonk. I think he's German. Gosh, I wish I could find his mess. I can't find it. But basically, out of nowhere, he you know, people get different things out of your videos, right? Like, you broaden my perspective on the world. You help me overcome my fears of travel. You help me understand a different culture. You know, those are things I always expect. You know, people, and that happens all the time. Like the people that send me messages, my moniker is JaYoe, Jayoe. It's built on the Chinese phrase JaYoe, which means to add fuel. But fuel is whatever you want it to be. You know, your fuel and my fuel might be different, whatever fuels us. And so I always thought the meaning of JaYoe is just or I couldn't think of any comparable thing in America. Like hoorah maybe, but
you don't.
You know,
Yeah,
not
like,
even
go for it.
right. You'd have to think of JaYoe is really
you can do it.
You can do it. You can do it. But so this guy sent me a message. I had just gone to the Geely factory, the Link & Co. factory, and I saw them manufacturing stuff up in Yuyao. And he was watching that video. Now, this guy had a stroke, and he had a stroke about 5 years ago, and he lost an entire, like a quarter of his life. Like just memory wiped out. Had some sort of a blockage in his brain, and it was gone forever. And his wife had to readjust. This wasn't my old husband. This is my new husband, and we're gonna have to get through this together. And there was heartache and strife and all of this stuff. He was watching my Link & Co. video, and he said, it was really, I wish I could have found the email, but it's okay. He said, when I was watching this video, I instantly thought to myself, I worked in Jaguar.
Whoa.
I worked in a Jaguar factory. And his wife looked over to him and was like, yeah, you did. He's like, I remember. And then I remember. And then I remember. And all of a sudden, all of these memories started coming back. And he said that me and my wife were crying because the door unlocked using your video. Now, granted, I obviously I didn't make that video with the intention, but I'm just unintended consequences of the things you guys recording this podcast. This might have unintended consequences you will never even realize. You know what I mean? Somebody might listen and be like, "Oh, thanks for saying that," and then butterfly effect down the road. Who knows? But this guy had this. I mean,
wow.
When I list the things that this channel could do, my YouTube channel could do for someone, I would never say it will unlock the memory closet that has been padlocked for 5 years. And he said he went to his doctor, and the doctor said just keep watching that video on repeat, because you never know what else it could unlock. But I mean, like, it's an incredible opportunity to be able to share, and you never know. What the hell was the original question you asked me? Because I don't know.
Well, it was about like the takeaway from your overall message, but like more like that's a beautiful story, by the way.
Yeah.
But like, I'm interested in learning like what have you learned, or how have you changed, or your perspectives changed personally through doing this channel and making the videos that you do and getting the response, whether it's positive or negative responses from it.
Well, I'm always changing. Like, I'm always adjusting. Like I'm not hardwired, One of the things, I'll issue an apology. Like, I say I'm sorry probably too many times because I'm constantly aware that nobody's perfect, And the moment you think you're 100% right, the world will come and smack you in the face and tell you you're not, So I've evolved a huge amount through my YouTube channel and being able to share the experiences because it's elicited responses from the YouTube community to kind of check me, or to confirm, So, you've got the both sides. And God, if like I've said this, if I talked to the Matt from 10 years ago and we sat down and had a conversation like a podcast, holy shit, he would be floored. He would be unrecognizable. I would recognize him. He certainly wouldn't recognize me.
Why is that?
Well, because I've, I like we were talking earlier. I grew up in Southeast Michigan, and that's a very fairly right-wing part of the world. And my dad was a hard-working, red-blooded American, and we have a certain mindset as that type. And so as you get traveling around, you start to adopt other mindsets and
questioning things.
Oh my God. I made a video recently about war, and I was like, I remember the whole weapons of mass destruction and the idea that a government is going to try to coax you into what they want you to do. They want to get in and take a little oil here and there. I mean, or whatever the case is, and everybody does it. China's government does it. America's government does it. But when you're living in America, you're like, oh, we don't do that. It's everybody else. We've got to go save everybody else. And especially war.
It's a positive coalition. It's not.
Yeah. And like, I rode through Vietnam. I went to the Hanoi Hilton, which is where John McCain was imprisoned. And before him, it's where the Vietnamese were imprisoned by the French. And the Vietnamese were imprisoning the French. Before that, the French were imprisoning the Vietnamese. And it was just this like crazy cycle. And I'm looking around Vietnam. I'm like, did they benefit from this war? No, the Vietnam, they were all trying to change Vietnam, communism or whatever. Are these really threats? What are we doing here? Can we all come together? Like, that's why my channel is really, it's not completely optimistic, but it's definitely has an optimistic slant to it. So I want to share that optimistic slant with the people that watch the channel in hopes that they can be a little bit more optimistic instead of pessimistic as well.
Well, as it relates to kind of our situation here, and when I watch your videos, I get a feeling of like you kind of echo a lot of the thoughts and feelings that I've been having. And we've arrived in China because I arrived around 2009 as well to China. And so we've been staying and living here through a period where we saw, like in real time, the tensions between America and China escalate and escalate and escalate, right? And when we first arrived, if you were to go on social media and YouTube and look at news media and journalism, there wasn't nearly as much coverage about China being a threat or any of this. It was more focused probably on the Middle East at that time. Russia's always been, a topic of discussion in terms of like kind of foreign quote unquote enemies, I guess, or threats. But through really the last few years, we've really seen like a spike in this coverage and hot topic of China being a threat, especially in Western media. And I'm just thinking like we're staying in this time where like we're realizing a huge disconnect between what we're experiencing in our day-to-day lives living here and the kind of the messages and beliefs and principles we were kind of raised with in the United States. You know, we're like growing up in the United States, we were, you know, I don't like brainwash is a strong word, but like it's kind of like we're kind of brainwashed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States.
And you
of
think
America.
you're on like the right moral line of every topic, every issue, and even things as like taboo as like communism, socialism, things like these terms were so extremely taboo that like of course they're evil.
Yeah.
Of course anything
And if
that's
you
not
say anything otherwise, you are evil.
Yes. And you're labeled as a traitor, as a China apologist, which I think you've been labeled by your critics. And it's this complete like craziness because when you actually have spent time in China, yes, it's a communist country. But the narrative that we're raised to believe in terms of like the moral lines of everything like are just really completely untrue once you actually understand what's happening here. So like how has that affected you at all in terms of, you know, your beliefs?
Well, I mean, I think it's all deflection. You know, I think that what we're in right now is massive amounts of deflection. And you see it a lot in like there's a perfect example is like the Mexicans coming over the border, that issue in America. You know, these damn Mexicans, it's all their fault. But there are jobs for those immigrants. You know, those people crossing the borders are being hired by people who are not. Why doesn't nobody cares about them? You know, nobody gives a shit about the factories that are making money off of the labor from those people. You know, there's income issues, there's minimum wage issues, there's a whole lot of issues. Those immigrants are not the issue, you know, that you need to focus on in order to fix the immigration problem. Similar to China, it's like you said that's changed a lot. Well, it's changed a lot because China used to be everybody's bitch. You know, they'll make all our shit and they'll make everybody happy because the factories will be making all this stuff for super cheap. You know, they're hiring kids and we care about that, but who really cares about that? I mean, I'm saying this
as long as we get our
facetiously.
products.
I'm saying Nike, it was, you know, they had factories that had child labor and stuff. Today, I don't know how many factories might be child labor, but it is certainly very, very, very small. I don't know. You know, the income for the Chinese laborer has gone up. I know because I'm in. You know, there might be some people that might make YouTube videos about knowing China. You know, in many different ways. Well, I know China as a import-export guy that went into factories. I talked to a lot of people. I've traveled around. I cycled through little villages. I've been to 1-star hotels. I've been to 10-star hotels. I've been across the entire gamut. So if somebody says their opinion of China is better than my opinion of China, I would like to challenge them a little bit on that. Because I have seen the old China, and the new China is much improved, my friends. And when you have an economy that has improved so much, all of a sudden they go from being your slave to being your competitor. And once you become a competitor, the messaging has to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a certain control that the world had over China for a long period of time, which was the status quo. It's no big deal. As long as they keep making our shit, I don't care. But as soon as it started to shift,
threat.
Yeah. As soon as they started becoming a threat, instead of like reaching out and saying, let's, you know, trade policies are important, but not when you throw them at people like a monkey throws his feces, you know, like, you know, there's like people are like, well, Matt, what do you think China should just, no. But there's diplomacy. There's diplomacy, and then there's what has been happening over the course of the past 5 years, or even more. You know, it's been going on for about a decade. You know, this kind of anger towards China, and it's so like easy to see. I saw it when I was making little doodads and antenna acrobats, and my I was buying products from China because the systems that America set up to buy stuff from China was easy, and good.
It was beneficial,
and everybody was happy about it back then.
And it's also, I think it's also the context of like the concept of like time means different things and moves differently in America and China. So when you talk to Americans and you say something like, it's different than it was in the 90s, let alone the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, geez.
But, it's different than it was in the 90s. And in America, things move and progress and develop relatively slower in their system, in the American system. So when people say, in the 90s, well, that's not that long ago. How much could have possibly changed in, 20 years, 30 years, right? Like how much could have possibly changed? Like nothing's really changed in my city. You go to New York today versus New York back in the 90s, it's relatively pretty much the same exact thing. So people are kind of like hesitant to believe like all this massive social and cultural and infrastructure and political change can happen so drastically and so well within that short period of time. But when you live in China, you understand that time moves very differently here. A year here and things are almost unrecognizable. You know what I mean? You spend a year away from Shanghai, you come back, and you're like, wait, this neighborhood's different, that's different, this building wasn't here before, you know what I mean? So I think it's also, that has a bit to do with it in terms of a lot of Westerners' hesitancy to kind of believe a lot of the message and a lot of the things that you say.
What's that Ferris Bueller line at the end where he's like, "Life moves pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not looking, it'll pass you up."
Yeah. But it's like, how do you like confront that? Like, how do you, because when I see you and you get labeled a bunch of different things, some really nasty things.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a traitor or you're a China apologist or
terrorist.
Or terrorist. You've been labeled terrorist.
Yeah.
You've been labeled.
You're bought out.
Yeah. Well, you're working for the CCP.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're
They're
paid,
funding me.
Yeah.
You've been.
Hey guys out there, if you're working with China's government, my WeChat's out there because apparently you're funding me. I haven't seen any of those checks, guys.
Yeah, you're a little late on the payments.
Yeah. Please, jeez, Louise.
You've been called a white monkey of the CCP.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You've been called a bunch of nasty things. And I would argue that in terms of your patriotism as an American, like I feel like you are doing a patriotic duty because it doesn't help America, being an American, to keep continuing living or believing kind of like a conspiracy or dishonest truth and being manipulated and led down a dark path of conflict. And you're not saying like China is better than America. You're just saying, look, it's not what we've been told to believe. And this is what is reality. Now take what you want to do with it, but we need to prepare ourselves for the reality of the situation because it doesn't help anyone to kind of believe in the whole conspiracy and American propaganda because that's just going to lead you down a really dark path. And China is going to keep continuing to improve and rise, and you're going to be left behind.
Well, think about the rot that happens in the example of America right now. So Donald Trump contested his loss, and he sent Rudy Giuliani out to do all these court cases. I'd give him a chance. Present me a case. First case, down. Second case, down. 50 cases, down. There's a certain point, you lost. You're done. But the propaganda that America has put out, because, hello, everybody, America puts out propaganda too. Propaganda is a broad topic, and we were talking about that. You could do a whole podcast about what the definition of propaganda is.
And the stigma around the word propaganda.
Yeah. This was rotten propaganda, right? So, like, it has encouraged so many people because the President of the United States and all of his people have said, we won legitimately. Now, if you trust the system that you're part of, if you're a right-winger, you've always been, your dad, your mom, your uncle, your grandpa, everybody's right-wing, you're going to say, well, you know what? What the president said must be true. It must be the world is against him. Now, I look at the data, and he's lost so many of those cases. Any credence that he had, that he won, is not there anymore. But what happens, it's the same thing with China, like you can't win. If you go up to those people and you say, Donald Trump lost, they'll say, you're not looking at the right information. It doesn't matter if the information you're looking at is a lie. They believe it wholeheartedly, and there's no way to break them from it. It's the same thing with China, because people will say, I did a poll on my channel recently, and I asked, how many people watch my channel who are Asian inside China? How many people who watch my channel who are Asian outside China? How many people watch my channel who are Western inside China, outside China? Those 4 options. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to see, like, most people that watch my channel like my channel. I mean, the hate watchers are a percentage, but they're much less. And you know what they are? They're mostly Asian. They're mostly people who have a connection to Asia. Now, this is a very rough poll that I'm using, but most of the haters, most of the angry people, the people who say they're defending China and communism, they're Westerners. So it's like there's no way to change any minds because the people have been infected with this idea of what they think China is. You're inside. You know what China is. The Asians know what China is. And I'm not saying that, listen, China's not perfect. No country is perfect. There are some things going on here that I don't think are quite right. I bring them up in my videos. People think that I don't talk negative about China, but I talk overwhelmingly positive about everything. It just so happens that 4,000 people dying a day of a pandemic in America is something I can't keep quiet about. You know, I bring that up because it pisses me off. It's frustrating to me, you know. But I don't know about enough about certain issues. You know, I'm American, so I know a lot about the issues going on there. You know, there's some issues in China. I know what's in front of my face. The streets are clean. The people are nice. What people are saying about China in many aspects is crazy. If you want to talk about certain issues, I'm like, I don't even mind if people bring up stuff that is negative. I like it. Go ahead. So, I don't like to shed the dark. I don't like to look at the darkness. I look at the light. If you want to look at the darkness, but you have a legitimate position, that's great. That's great. We need people to illuminate the shadows. I'm the guy that's drawing attention to the light, and you know. So there's a place for all of us. But the propaganda is so crazy. I don't even remember what the original question was.
No, just keep going. No, because I'm fascinated. It boggles my mind that when I look at your videos, and not so much the political ones, but just kind of your core bread and butter videos, which is about travel and culture, right? And you're going around different cities and you're vlogging, taking your camera and documenting what your experiences are and saying
green screen
and showing no green screen. Like you're on site there throughout. There's no like doctoring of any images. So
I After Effects smiles on everybody. They're all very depressed.
So you go around vlogging, and just like the one you went to the farm and they were growing vegetables in that one city.
Oy vey.
And people can take that and then take that like really innocent like video.
Yeah.
And just extrapolate all these other connotations of like evil intent.
Yeah.
You know, recently you've been attacked by the London Times.
Yeah.
You've been attacked by other YouTubers like Serpent Z8 and Y86, who are kind of, they have quite a big following as well. And they're very agenda based in terms of very anti-China. But it just boggles my mind how they can take your video, which has like really no political like lean, really. It's just like you're just in the city and you're looking at farmers and you're looking at vegetables and that's it, right? Yeah. And then people can be like, that is propaganda. He is a white monkey working for the Chinese Communist Party.
Useful idiot.
You're a terrorist.
Yeah.
Like I just don't understand the connect there, and it just feels like people have so strong of an agenda to smear and paint a certain narrative that they just are desperate to look for anything, especially someone who is saying relatively positive things, and it's fabricating this whole narrative around it. It's mind-boggling to me.
So I'm going to cut in here. First of all, the audience base is a really important thing, right? So Matt, you primarily, your audience is on YouTube, right? Is that?
It's crazy. I worked for 8 years to build up my channel to 110,000 views or 110,000 subscribers. Yeah. I started my Douyin, which is TikTok China. I started that 3 months ago. It's at 650,000 subscribers. Like, it's sort of a slap to my face. I'm like, God damn, what am I doing wrong?
Well, your Billy is a lot too, right?
My Billy's over 100,000 now too, which is great. So my audience is split between, but all video platforms.
Yeah. So you're on different platforms, and then the audience base is very different. And what you were sharing a little bit earlier about like Asian Western composition, to understand your audience is very different.
Yeah.
And so I think Justin is talking about a lot of the, I guess, the small amount of negativity on Is it your YouTube channel? It's not on the Doughing or Billy.
No.
You don't get the hate on the other platforms, do you?
I can't read a lot of it, so
Even if you did.
Maybe it might be a bunch of ignorance.
Because I think it's really interesting, and then I think like our show. I mean, we don't, I think we're quite, just regular guys or whatever, and then Justin, I think, has a lot more understanding of around who our audience is. But I know on Ximalaya, we have a bit of a kind of a base, right? And we have like a little WeChat group, and it's mostly like locals, right? So what's really interesting is that like most of the people probably listening right now would find it even inconceivable to think about, a group of people wherever they are watching YouTube and then attacking you for certain things, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is not just you. This is sort of like, I mean, it's a symptom of society where you get to a point where there's so much polarization and people are arguing and stuff like that. I'm curious, based on your knowledge, right? Travel seems to be an antidote for it, right? Because you grew up in this place, and had you never left Michigan, you might be holding on to those values. But I'm curious, like, what do you think the root cause is for people to get so furious and have so much negativity when it seems like being positive is a much better way of living?
I think it's got to be your upbringing, your parents, your friends. I mean, my social circle is huge. And I guess if you have your social circle is huge, full of angry people, you're going to be an angry person.
You're going to be, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was a pretty open-minded, happy guy. He was quite. He was like a reborn Christian. There's a whole story with my dad with regards. I'm not a very religious person, which is very helpful to travel around the world and be, I don't even know, agnostic or whatever. But I don't have anything against anybody's religion as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Just don't hurt anybody. Come on, guys. Buddhism is pretty damn cool, except for some of the monks out there like to blow. So there's hate, there's anger, and you can find it anywhere. But I think the root cause of it is the people you surround yourself with. I was actually lucky enough when I was younger I was really antisocial. I was a nerd. There was a girl, Diana, that in elementary school, she used to beat me up. Like, I used to dread walking home from school because if Diana caught a glimpse of me, I'd have to run through the.
What was her issue with
yards. I don't remember. She just didn't like me. She tripped me.
Like, Matt, here you are again.
Here you are. Just like in the movies.
Pounding
just like
her
in the
fist.
movies. And but you know what that did is it never had me clinging to popularity, and I feel like that's not everybody. I mean, there's definitely popular people that go on, but like for example, 90210. Do you remember Beverly Hills 90210? Jason Priestley was my favorite guy. He wasn't super popular. He got along with all of the groups, and he always had the moral compass where it wasn't Dylan where he's like had to wear the leather jacket. I don't remember. I don't remember this movie. All I remember is Jason Priestley. So. I think that like when people are pursuing image and pursuing fame or whatever, it can pollute, and my dad was a very humble man, always very humble. In fact, I dated a bunch of girls when I was younger, and he was always like, "Oh, Matt, I'd never been able to do that," and he was kind of proud of his son because I was certainly not a playboy, but my dad was certainly not, on the extreme. So I think that a lot of it has to do with with that, and me getting out of Michigan and me traveling even before I moved to China was so important because every time you leap out, your circle grows and your circle grows and you start seeing. But there's so many people in everywhere, in China too, that never leave their village or never leave their city and so their ideology is ingrained in there. Do you guys go home? I don't know how long have you been?
I mean, I was going to say I went back to New York in January as well, end of January. And I got stuck there for like a little over a month. But yeah, my family's all in China.
Okay.
And so when I go back to the States, it's always just to visit friends or just to hang out.
Do you find when you go home that like you have like, hey guys, how's it going? And they look at you and they go, I don't know, Matt, what's China like? Like there's like I have a total disconnect from the people that I used to be like best friends with. And that goes a lot to what you were saying is that like like you have to evolve, and sometimes you evolve away from the old ideas you used to have, and sometimes you evolve stronger into those, and travel is so important for that, you know.
It's funny though, but facetiously, what you're saying is that a lot of these people, the haters, they just have daddy issues, right?
Well, maybe.
Well, a lot of these haters, like let's say the because I keep bringing up these YouTubers that hate on you because they do actually have quite large followings. So so some of them do. So it's not like no one's listening to them, you know. But do you feel like they actually honestly believe what they're saying, or do you think that they've found a niche and they know how to play that YouTube algorithm? They know there's a market, an audience for it, and it drives those views, it drives those clicks, and so they just purposely play into that.
You know, only speculate. A person is their own person. I cannot speak for. You're talking about Winston, you know, who is Serpents Today. I can't speak for him. He needs to. He's obviously doing something, you know, whether he believes in it or not. He's doing it. I think what he's doing right now is extremely toxic. I think that he is driving a wedge when he should be bringing people together. I was friends with him, and he's still in his video where he loves to say, Matt, I never call you out by name. You know, he's like, I'm better because I don't call you out by name when I attack you.
And they say like, oh, I don't like to attack people.
I don't like to attack people, but I'm about to attack people, you know, for the next 20 minutes. And, you know, I never agreed with him on everything. I don't agree. I like we're talking. I like to hang out with people I don't agree with. As a matter of fact, in my Patreon, there's a guy in my Patreon named Gus. And Gus and I disagree on a lot of things. Like, he gets shit on in my Patreon because a lot of my Patreons are patriotic, you know, very patriotic. And so they dogpile on him a lot. And I'm like, no, don't dogpile on Gus. Let him say what he wants to say. And he's got like somewhat of a right-wing perspective. But he lives in China. It's an objective right-wing perspective. And a lot of YouTubers in China loved that Winston showed the potential of somebody telling stories in China. And Winston and I, we were never like best buddies. You know, I'm not trying to upsell our friendship, but we were friends. At least I think so. And I think he thinks so as well. And I met him in Shenzhen a couple of times when he lived here in China. And he told me about his history, and he told me about what influences his, like, my opinion is influenced, like I said, by my dad and my family and the friends and the people I've met. And pretty much everybody has been this kind of gung-ho positive, you can do it, to aid to my existing optimistic attitude. Yeah, even you guys seem like pretty optimistic guys. I'm going to leave here a little bit more optimistic. Whereas other people might have been informed by different life experiences. And, you know, Winston grew up in South Africa. It was a rough place. I'm not going to tell his stories that he told me personally, but he's had some really rough things that happened in his life early on, and they might have informed his ideology, his perspective on the world. He might be wearing a different colored glasses than I wear. And we got to appreciate the different colored glasses that everybody wears. So when he made videos, you know, about his life, I don't know. Some of them I wouldn't watch because I'm not too interested in them. Some of them I would because I was. And some of it I wouldn't agree with. Some of it I would. But then he left China, and he just felt really. I know that he really wanted to move to America. It was one of the things he talked about a lot, and I'm not sharing a secret. He knows it too, you know. And he was very happy to be able to get to America. And I don't know with what reasons he moved to America. I saw Matt and Winston's video about their escape.
I saw that too. I escaped
I'll tell
from
you
China.
what. I'll tell you what. If you're going to escape China and you're being tracked, you better swim across the freaking water to get to Vietnam. You're not going to walk through the customs check at Hong Kong. You know what that's called? leaving China. So I'm sorry, guys. I know, and that's part of the thing I think that they're caught up in, is that they've got to sensationalize a lot of stuff. And I don't deny that the Chinese government was probably looking at them. They were doing certain things in China that would attract attention. All of us are kind of doing things that attract attention when we're doing web, promoting
creating
China,
content,
creating content just in general. So, do I deny that they got a whiff from somebody, that there was probably some questions that needed to be asked to them? No, I don't deny that. I don't think so. But them escaping China and them leaving China, I think they left China. They left China, and I think that they, after that leave of China, it seemed like they just, I don't know, evolved into a different level of.
It seems like they ramped up like the hate.
There's
and
no
demonizing.
denying that hating and demonizing are like in vogue, right? In vogue?
In vogue, yeah.
In vogue, is that a good thing?
In
Like
vogue.
they're in
In
vogue
vogue.
right now.
In fashion right now.
In fashion. They're definitely in fashion. I'm on an opposite side of that. Like I'm like that pro-China. I don't even like saying pro-China, but I'm like objective China.
Yeah.
Objective China, is getting certain amount of audience, but the anger and the vitriol and the labeling, and especially with regards to COVID has changed the game, because America fucked up so bad.
Yeah.
There's no denying it.
Yeah.
There is no denying it. So if your house is on fire and it's your fault, you lit the match. Granted, okay, China, you gotta always, okay, it started in China, right? Or it was birthed, it was found in China first. But there was reports that it was everywhere in November. It was in France. It was in Italy. It was in.
You're talking about November of 2018. Oh no,
2019. Yeah,
okay.
it was found in antibodies of blood that was captured, that was taken from people in the west coast of America. It was. Before it was found publicly in China, it was all other places. I'm not saying that it couldn't have, that the preponderance. I actually made a video that said that it could have started other places. Since that video, I talked to some virologists. My daughter's school teacher, his brother is a virologist, went to Harvard, like a really smart cookie. And I sent him a message. I said, I made a video recently bringing up the potential that it couldn't have been in China. And he's like, honestly, the epidemiology traces of the Wuhan of the virus are centered around China. So I'm just saying that if it would have started in China, and the preponderance of evidence show that it did, it wasn't in China for long. It was everywhere right away, because it was an asymptomatic spreading virus,
Yeah.
And so
It's going to spread no matter where it starts. It's going to spread.
Right. And
especially
so,
in today's day and age.
And so with America doing such a horrible job, that's why, thank God sometimes I'll lose the thread of a conversation.
Yeah, I get that.
I was
I get
really
that.
close to losing that thread. I was like, just grabbed it. But, the fact is that America's did such a horrible job. It's undeniable. Their own fault. No matter where the virus came from, you could have followed certain policies. You could have told people about masks. The fact that people don't want to wear masks is it's not like we're asking people to shoot themselves in the foot. Yeah. It's just wear a damn mask. Even if you don't think it does anything, wear the stupid mask. But whatever. You've got to cast blame. That's what I'm saying. And so right now, people don't want to say that my house is on fire. They want to say your house is on fire. No, you are. No, you are.
Well, no, they want to say my house might be on fire, but you lit the match.
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the one with the flamethrower. Yeah.
Well, they're playing the victim mentality,
Oh
right?
my
Instead of
God.
taking ownership.
They want to cast blame to somewhere outside,
Well, I like the analogy you did in one of your videos about because people were this is a small subtopic. It's not like a main issue or anything like that. But there were a lot of people criticizing China in the beginning because they were buying up all the masks.
Yeah.
Right? And because the virus hit in China first, and there was a lot of blame on China, like they're hogging all the resources,
Yeah.
and what about the rest of us,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I like your analogy about how you related it to the house fire and the extinguisher. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Shit, that was a video I made a long time ago. What did I say? Can you tell me?
Oh God! Now you're touching me. No, it was
That
about.
was a really good story. I have really loved that story. I don't remember it, but
I was
you.
hoping you'd be like, "Yes, Justin, here I go."
Take it from
Now
here.
you're throwing it right back in my face. No, you were saying okay. So it's like about like if you're a house China got hit by the virus first.
Yeah.
And it was really bad here.
Yeah.
And so it's like if your house is on fire and your neighbor's house isn't.
Yeah.
And you walk, and while your house is on fire,
Oh
you
yeah,
walk
they
over
want to.
to-
Can I take your fire extinguisher? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need it. And so you give up your fire extinguisher. I mean, like it would have been so easy for those governments in Australia and in America to say, everybody that has stock of masks, stop selling it. China did not steal those masks. China bought those masks. And you know what, those stores, they were happy to sell those masks because their government was saying, there's a virus in China. This is a seller's market.
Yeah.
This
Inventory's
is a seller's
gotta
market.
go.
and they're buying those
clearance
masks
sale.
because their house was on fire.
Their house was on fire. And then, and of course, China's returning the favor huge. They're manufacturing all the masks and going out.
Yeah.
Now, there is some, like China was doing what other countries should have been doing. At a certain point, China was like, okay, we got to stop giving away these masks. So we are in trouble here. Other countries, and then that goes to the beginning too. America's stockpile of masks was severely depleted. Their manufacturing of masks was all off-site. These are not China's fault.
Yeah, you don't blame.
These are not China's fault. Plan accordingly. We don't live in the old world anymore. We are all the world is flat. There's a book that was written that was called The World is Flat, something Maxwell or something. It's a very, very interesting book about how the world is now sort of ubiquitous. We're all on the same level, It used to be we were all separated, but now it's so easy to connect and be interconnected that I think we've gone complacent. And so America was like, shit, we can get a discount on these masks if we make them all in China, so let's just do it. What's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is this. America should have had half of its production in America poised and ready to go in case of any emergency. They should have ventilators companies ready to go in case of any emergency. They have all these things. Just because they didn't, it's not China's fault. China bought all the masks that you were selling. You were very happy to sell those masks. I think that was the analogy. Your neighbor's house is on fire, and there's embers flying off the roof of your neighbor's house on everybody else's house, and your neighbor comes out, hey, anybody's got a fire extinguisher? My house is on fire, and you're like drinking your beer. Yeah. I got 3 of them. You can have all 3.
You're like, finally.
Yeah.
Take them.
Yeah, shit.
They've been sitting
in
here
my
for-
closet. Yeah, go ahead. Use them up. And then your house is on fire, and they're like, you bastard. When the embers were clearly flying everywhere. It was...
Exactly. It's like, you bastard, how dare you buy my fire extinguisher?
How
that
dare
I
you
need
give me
now?
money? Right. It's not even like, can I borrow your fire extinguisher? There was like, I'm going to buy it. Thanks for reminding me about my video analogy. I appreciate that.
I'm your number 1 fan, bro.
I was going to be really pissed off if I didn't remember that.
I watched it recently in preparation for this podcast, and a lot of things you say, I think you paint some really good analogies. You did it with the manufacturing and the IE.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of parallels to draw on here, I guess.
Analogies, I think, are probably one of the best forms of getting other people to understand your point of view, especially when it's different. You can't tell people about what life is in China without them living here. So if you can make it an analogy about something they might relate to in their home country, it's much better. Especially when you're a white guy vlogging from China, because you're trying to get people to understand things that. And in case if you haven't lived in China for so long, you can't empathize, you can't understand.
Well, one thing you were mentioning before, coming from Michigan, never really leaving your hometown until coming to China, right? Before that, living anywhere else abroad.
I lived in outside
Vegas.
of America. I lived in Fort Lauderdale on a yacht in the Caribbean, and then I was in Vegas for 5 years, and then China.
Yeah. But China was your first.
China was my
foreign
first
country,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Getting out of Dodge.
Yeah, and one thing we've also discussed in the past is coming up with an American background. talking about brainwashing and stuff like that. We've all discussed previously in our podcast, like how we felt when we first arrived in China, the differences in culture, the differences in way of thinking, way of doing things, the difficulties we faced, in terms of, wait, you guys are doing it wrong. Like, we're American, like we have our way of doing things and thinking things.
The
right?
colonial mindset.
Very much
mindset.
so. Very much so.
And so I'm just curious, like, how did you feel? I mean, you dropped off right into Ningbo, which is like right into the cut, right? It's not like you went to Shanghai, which was a little bit more metropolitan. Ningbo is less metropolitan at that time, especially. So yeah, did you have any difficulties, or what are some of the culture shocks that you had?
When I moved to China, I had listened to a Pimsleur Mandarin course, and it taught me how to say one thing. 我说的不好. And it was, and I love the way that it sounded. 我说的不好. When you say that is, you cannot get that sound to come out of your mouth in English in any way. 我说的不好. And so I really thought I perfected my I don't speak. For those of you that don't mean that means I don't speak China well. 我说的不好. And that was all I spoke. Mm-hmm. I was there for business. I was there to interact with factory customer service representatives and quality control people, most of whom had a pretty good English skill. I moved in, my first apartment was like a 30 square meter apartment, about the size of this this studio. And the first few weeks, somebody broke into my apartment, stole my laptop.
Really?
Yeah, I had. I think I left the door open. I pretty much invited him in, basically. But I was living in a pretty seedy part of town. I went to a gym that was in an alleyway in Haishu District, and the gym, there was guys that would on the treadmill with dress shoes, smoking a cigarette and a blazer.
Classic.
Yes. I would swim. They had a pool, and the people would sit next to the pool and ash into the pool, and and the smoke would come down, and it would like create a layer. So when I'd breathe like swimming, I'd inhale like a swig. And next to it was a massage place where they did like hand jobs and the whole
happy endings,
like the whole happy ending thing. I mean, it was a
culture shock.
It was an introduction into China. And but it was a challenge, but it was also exciting. And I was so focused on my business that I was pretty I just wanted to make that work, and I was interested in networking, and I was trying to find people to make things. And I wasn't necessarily so interested in the culture. I was focused on, I was kind of like that. And I wasn't greedy, but maybe a little, not arrogant. What's the word? Where you're not like ignorant, maybe? I was just being ignorant, voluntarily ignorant to the culture, and just focused on my mission. Because I had this mission. I'm going to be in China for 5 years.
You were oblivious to the culture.
Oblivious. It wasn't until I moved into another apartment and I met a guy named Ryan Freeman. Ryan Freeman was a teacher. And Ryan was like a hippie. He didn't need business. He didn't need money. He was teaching just enough to put money in his pocket in order to live a comfortable life. Super schweiger. I mean, really good-looking California dude with long hair, and he'd like to flick it. He was like, this is like opposite to me, And so he's like, man, let's do running. And so we'd run together every morning, and when we run, we'd talk. And then he'd say, I could sleep on that park bench. I'd be happy as long as I had the experiences. That's when my life changed, and I started fundamentally understanding that experiences don't need to be bought. Experiences can be had in many different ways. And so I started like shifting my idea. If I had met Ryan, my whole life would be
sounds
very,
like
very
an important catalyst.
Yeah.
Oh, extremely. That's like
life-changing.
Yeah, that's why I say like we're all soup. Everybody's a spice. You're all different spices to my soup, and some of them are stronger and some of them are weaker. And some of them make the taste better and some of them make the taste worse. And Ryan was a very influential person, and he was the guy that actually gave me the idea for trike. He's the guy that said tadpole tricycle. And so we were going to do the tour around the world together. And me and Ryan, that's a whole story. We got a lot of stories, that's another story.
Where's Ryan now?
Ryan's in LA, married to a Japanese girl, I can actually say this. Ryan was locked up in Japan for, he'd bought some, what was that? Silk Road? remember Silk Road? You could buy drugs off of Silk Road. And so he
Like
was
a Bitcoin kind of thing?
Yeah, and like the dark web, you know?
Yeah, dark web. Yeah.
And he was in Japan, had a bunch of buddies there teaching English, and they all did MDMA, whatever, you know. And he was doing it because he's like a shaman, you know. He wasn't doing it like a guy that's getting high and, you know, stabbing his. He was just trying to experience different perception levels. And anyways, the Japanese police caught him and locked him up for a little while. And
how long?
Yeah, just a few months. But he had no English. He didn't speak any Japanese. You know, the food they fed him. They actually drugged him. They gave him downers. They give all inmates in jails in Japan downers so that they don't act up.
Wow.
So he went there for drugs.
He's like, yeah, he got the drugs.
Now I'm not letting a cat out of a bag. He has since started a YouTube channel where he shared this whole story in depth. Like he has a 20 video, 2 hour per video series where he talks at length without his shirt on about his life. Course. He's a very interesting guy. I love the guy, you know, love, hate him, you know, because that's how you do with good friends. But yeah, so me and Ryan have influenced. I think we've influenced each other quite a bit. You know, that's a good relation. A good friendship is you get as much out as you're giving.
Street.
And so, without Ryan in my life, I don't think I would have realized that I didn't need I was losing my hair. I mean, I used to have nice hair, you know, like before business and that sort of entrepreneurial problems and all of those kind of things. And now I look back. Now, I wouldn't trade those for the world because I use all of those failures in everyday life in making my videos and everything, understanding people and understanding, you know, I understand a lot of I want to make a video about how I understand why people hate China. Like you're like, I'm trying not to hate people who hate China.
Yeah.
Because I understand you're being informed by this crazy monstrosity, this foundation of propaganda. That's wrong. You know, it's wrong, but so is the fact that Trump won the election is wrong. And, you know, those people that stormed the Capitol in January 6th, a lot of them were motivated by belief systems that they 100% wholeheartedly believe.
Yeah.
It is so hard to empathize with people that you are so diametrically, but I can't say diametrically opposed because they're as enthusiastic for the truth as you are. It's just their idea of the truth. I'm sorry, is wrong. It's just wrong.
Well, their idea of the truth is every bit as realistic the truth to them as it is your truth is to you.
Yeah.
So like you put yourself in those shoes and you feel about your own truths and you're like, no one could ever change my mind about that.
Yeah.
Well, that's how they feel, right? But it's also like kind of this like double standard, right? There's this, well, what we were just talking about was like a foundation, like your foundational beliefs. And no matter what side or what position you have your foundational beliefs. And oftentimes, that foundation wasn't built in a day.
Oh, yeah.
It was accrued, like you were saying, through your life experiences over years, decades.
Yeah.
And so that's like so solid that it's very rare that you ever really flip anyone fundamentally about their foundational truth. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is about like, you know, believing, like cherry picking your information as well, right? And that's very prevalent on YouTube because YouTube, the way the algorithm works is that it feeds you things that you have watched and that it knows that you like to watch. So it creates this mega ultra like roided up like echo chamber for you, right? And it's very hard for you to break out of that algorithm. You have to really try hard to break out of that algorithm. That algorithm was designed and created by some of the smartest people in the world, right?
Make it feel good.
So, but it's also about this, going back to this double standard, it's about cherry picking information and choosing what you want to believe versus what you don't want to believe. So like in the context of China, again, it's just like, you know, so often in the West, you are so quickly to believe any negative news that comes out of China. So if it's something negative, of course that's going to happen. That's what China is. Negative news, you are so quick to believe. But when it comes to positive news, because there are positive things. There are negative things about China, but then there are plenty of positive things too. But positive things, it's like, no. That's lies. Like that's what the government wants you to believe. That's propaganda. You can't believe that. You can only believe the negative things. And it's just like kind of subconscious cherry picking of information that leads us astray.
I will stew on a negative comment on my YouTube channel for a day, but I'll have tons of positive comments. You know what I mean? But that one negative one just gets under your skin and you're like, what the hell are you thinking? You know, why are you calling me that? Or why are you saying that thing? It's so wrong. It's so blah, blah, blah. And there's this, you know, like if Winston, and I'm just saying that if Winston is playing a part, right? If he is truly exaggerating his point of view in order to attract an audience, I understand it. Because I am kind of being caught up in that as well. And it's intoxicating. Mm-hmm. It's intoxicating to say something very strongly, very authoritatively, and have everybody agree, love you or hate you, or, you know, it gets
like
you kind
Trump.
of excited.
It's like Trump
It's
does.
explainable. It's explainable.
It is so understandable. And I could, like, there was a point where I've been delivering some of my old videos recently of travel, my cycle travel, and they are getting horrible views. They're getting horrible views. And I'm like, all I have to do is say something angry or hateful, and those views will come back instantly. And there's that desire. There's that devil on my shoulder. There's that temptation. And I'm like, I can really understand how people fall into this hole that they can't get out of. Winston, for example, has a channel. And now I know Winston, he talked to me about this. He told me, he's like, man, I'm not really a big fan of this kind of opinionative content that I do. I'd much rather just fix cars and drink beers or hang out with my friends. And so he started up this channel called Worthless Whips, where he's fixing up cars in America. And I am so hopeful that this channel succeeds, but it's not. Like, when I say not succeeding, I mean, he has 1 million subscribers that eat his hate all the time. So if he's going to go to a channel that has to do with fixing up cars, those people are, there's a very, you got to start at zero again, you know? You got to build from, maybe not zero, but you got to start at 2 instead of, instead of 10, where he's at now. So I would love for him to focus on that, because I know he enjoys it. Second, it would be nice for that soapbox to disappear, because I think it's dangerous.
Matt,
right
there's so much I want to comment on.
Sorry,
but
sorry.
There's limited time. Of course, we can always get you on the show again.
Yeah,
and
we'll
have
do this
other
again.
conversations. Maybe I'll just zero in on a couple. But you guys both talked about like this notion of negativity having this magnetism towards people, right? You said that, stewing on negative comments, like even one for a whole day, even though you might have 1,000 positive ones, right? And it's interesting. There's a 1983 study, and it's in Harvard Business Review. I'll read you the abstract, right? But basically it says, and it's related to book reviews, right? And it's using book reviews as a lens, but it was shared by Adam Grant. Adam Grant's a really great he's a quite well-known author and podcaster and et cetera, professor. But anyways, he shared this study conducted by someone else. And it said that using edited excerpts of actual negative and positive book reviews, the research that these professors did supported the hypothesis that negative evaluators of products would be perceived as more intelligent than positive evaluators, right? And negative reviewers were perceived as more intelligent, competent, blah, 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 et cetera, right? And when you think about sort of our attraction and our gravitation to negativity, there's so much science behind that. We had... a guest last week, also Matt, right? Matt Beadle. And his message was very much the same as like focus on the strengths, not the weaknesses, focus on the positivity, all that kind of stuff. But I think we're hardwired, because imagine that, our DNA is tightly associated with people that lived 100,000 years ago in a totally different environment. It's changed very little probably in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so you're in a world where anything that's positive, if you have food, that's not a signal to action.
Yeah.
But
that lion's outside.
Yep. Any kind of
Protect your
negativity,
family.
sort of any kind of conflict, tension, and you're going to immediately react. And over, millions of years or thousands of years, we've honed our ability to zoom in and be captured by negativity, because that's a sign that improves our survival. And
It's fight or flight, not
it's
smile
fight or
and
flight.
love.
And then going back sort of to the positive message that you're sharing on the travel and all that stuff, that's the stuff that's truly nutritious, right? That's the stuff that people really need long term to be healthy and to have great wellness. But the stuff that people crave for instinctively on a day-to-day basis is that negativity. And, and maybe some people fall victim to it. It's very tempting. And then you get into a mode where, okay, you spend your life, let's say, like this former friend or whatever, this guy, where he spends all of his life or the predominant amount of his life creating negativity. And, so he's made a little money, but then he's living a life maybe that isn't what he envisioned of drinking beers and fixing cars.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, highly encourage you to continue to innovate and find ways to monetize the positive message, because that's what people need.
Yeah.
And not succumb to that sort of short-term, that short-term urge, to do something negative.
It's intoxicating, and I'm speaking from my opinions. So like, I don't know what his motivations are. I don't, I want to make sure that like a lot of people are like, you should hit him hard and you should attack back, or, all these things. Listen, Winston does what Winston does, and people will listen to what he says. I just want to be another voice out there that might be able to go up against it. And I don't know what his motivations are. I don't know what. I just know that we were friends once, and from that I make the.
Well, didn't he also create like a fake email, like this whole I Chongqing thing, right? And they basically created a fake email.
Listen, I'm not going to say whether they created that fake email or not, but they got an email that was not sent. This is what I know. They promoted an email that they did not receive from iChongqing. I mean, I literally know the owner of iChongqing, and I immediately called that person and said, hey, did you send these guys an email? Because they're using it as a prop.
Well, just very
to promote
quickly,
their thing.
to give the listeners a background,
Yeah.
you recently went on a trip to Chongqing,
Yeah.
right? And you did it through a tourism company called iChongqing,
Yeah.
which is owned by this girl who
Yeah.
just really loves Chongqing.
Yeah.
And you went there, and then
Catherine.
there was no like agenda. You just went there and just vlogged and just went wherever you wanted to go.
Companies all over the world bring in creators to show their place, their business, the tourism departments bring people. It happens. It's a gig, okay? It's not a government conspiracy. It's a gig.
Well, it's not even connected to the government. It's just a private tourism.
iChongqing is connected to the tourism authority of China.
Okay.
If you are going to do, it's just like anywhere else. You got to register your business with the LLC, with the local government. I mean, if you're going to be in the business of promoting certain places, you're going to have to be connected to the government authority of tourism in that place. So that was something that it's not like, okay, first of all, these people, they don't go out. It's not like, hi, my name is Joe, and I am a member of the CCP, of the authority of this bureau, and this is what I'm. No, nobody does that. It's like that vegetable guy who I dance with his vegetables. It's like saying I dance with his daughter. I dance with his vegetables. But this guy turned out to be a local representative of the village, connected to the government in a very
Well, these people are like, the thing is, these people are human beings, right? They're
right,
all human beings.
right.
But what happens is, and you mentioned earlier, like people learn through anecdotes and storytelling, right?
Yeah.
We're not really analytical. Most people just listen to a story, and that shapes their worldview.
Yeah.
And so when you don't know something, or when you're viewing something that's far away, people like to create a character in their mind, like in a book, and they become very, you can make them very sinister, or you can make them very nice. And so, like, growing up in the U.S., to me, the rest of the world was always very sinister, right? I mean, like the rest
Outside.
of China,
Yeah.
it was outside. And so, like, the European countries were very, nice, and China and Russia and the communists, they're very sinister, but these are human beings. And so we create these sort of, myths in our head to some extent.
Well, I mean, just to make sure to tie that off, because I've gone on a number of trips. I've been in China. COVID has me sort of locked down inside the country, and I make travel videos. So I'm becoming more and more popular, and my voice is being used a little bit by certain people. China's got some really interesting places and really interesting cultures, and we all know that. And so these local authorities are saying, hey, Matt, can you come out here? We'll show you around. If you want to make some videos about it, they don't say what videos I need to make. They're like, we know the videos that you make. Come on out, make some videos here. We'll take care of your expenses and send you home. And then you'll have some content for your channel. So I've been doing these trips, and Chongqing was one of them. Chongqing's a really amazing city. I had a lot of good times there. The people that had me promote there, they really took care of me and made sure that I could see the places that were interesting in Chongqing. And the outside narrative, the narrative of these kind of individuals that are hating on me are saying that there was flooding around the time that I went to Chongqing, and Chongqing was trying to make positive stories along the time that there was flooding. Like there was,
like they were trying to cover up,
like a weird, sinister narrative. Like there was an Emperor Palpatine that was, ha ha ha. Let's send the YouTubers out to Chongqing and get this kind of ulterior storyline going. And we had this plan for a year to go to Chongqing before flooding and before all of that. I covered the flooding. I actually did a live stream of the flooding, effects of the flooding in Chongqing. And you know what's funny? Winston took credit for that. He's like, I know that you've recently been talking about the flooding in Chongqing. I'm glad that I was able to encourage you to show the truth of what's. I'm like, dude, it was flooding. I wanted to talk about the flooding. You don't have to be part of every decision in my life. Like, calm down, buddy. Yeah. But there's this kind of thing that's just.
Well, and then going back to the emails, they created. Well, who knows where the email came from?
I won't say they created it,
but it was a false email that was never sent by Chongqing.
Yeah,
and they were showing it as if like, aha, here's the email that Matt must have gotten, and all the other YouTubers who went there must have gotten, and it was like this email, like just painting this narrative that like you were all like sponsored to be there, and it was like a direct propaganda thing for like the communist government.
Don't say this, do say this,
And so you never received any email from Chongqing?
Newsflash, 0 emails. We talked through WeChat. That's what people do these days, And
there was no restrictions.
email. I never received an email from Chongqing.
And there was no restrictions on what you could.
Can I just say something right now? The biggest red flag right now is that the email system is still a very Western way of working, and a lot of big corporations, Western corporations, international corporations use email.
Yeah.
But if you work in China and if you work with local agencies, local institutions, they don't use email.
Yeah.
No one
uses email.
No one uses
That's a good
email.
point. That's a really good point.
Came from that Yahoo mailbox, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, maybe they were duped. Maybe they were duped by somebody that sent them an email ghosted from iChongqing so that they could create a seed for them to create a video. There was somebody that said that one of my friends sent him that email so that he would make a video against me so that I could retaliate. Like there's
this
crazy
thing gets so twisted. It gets so
theories.
twisted.
There's crazy theories.
But they so they did sponsor your trip though, right? Like
they
what was
covered the
normal. It's called a
expenses.
media trip.
Yeah.
trip. So what kind of expenses are covered?
We had the cost of the food. We were transported. Air travel there and back were covered, and we had a food stipend of 300 RMB
So very
a
like
day.
boilerplate shit. Like that's very boilerplate, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
I went on other trips. We didn't have the stipend, 300 RMB a day, 0. It was just covering the daily costs. But iChongqing let us go off on our merry way in the evenings, and they're like, "Here's some food money or whatever." It's not a big deal. We were not being like the video. Okay, this is a thing I want to make sure to notate. The trips are sponsored. The videos are not. You know what I mean? The trip is sponsored. We're going to take you a place. If you're a photographer, or let's say you're not a photographer, but somebody takes you on a sponsored trip and you're like taking pictures, are they sponsoring those pictures? No, they're sponsoring the trip. The trip is taking you interesting places. They hope that you have a positive view
In
of
other
those
words,
things.
you do not need their approval to release the video that you shot, which makes it not their...
No.
Yeah.
Listen, I've done sponsored videos. Those are a pain in the ass because you produce the content, then you got to give it to them, and then you got to say, take this part off, do this part, make it a little shorter, make it a little longer. I literally had a TV show in Ningbo called the Ningbo Focus Show. I produced for Ningbo's government authority in Zhejiang province. So if people really want to attack me, listen, there's a hell of a lot of stuff. I have a video where I go, "Hi, I'm Matt, and this is the Ningbo Focus." And I would take them around all these places. A lot of people moved to Ningbo because they saw my videos of the Ningbo Focus Show. That was an actual paid-for gig. I had control over the content, but it was still a paid-for gig, and they had all the editorial control to say, take this out, put this in,
It's like if you're going to dig
Yeah,
Like, get some real shit out. Like,
Yeah,
not this
that's
stuff.
some better fertile ground for you to
your,
dig in
your
if you want to
YouTube
hate on
travel
me.
vlogs are like so far from that in terms
It's
of it's
milk
just complete.
toast. It's milk toast.
Yeah.
Is there anything like in your channel, the JaYoe Nation? Is it just you? Do you have a team or is there anything?
It's just me. When I travel around, I carry 10 terabytes of video with me. I'm on my laptop. I got my drone. I got my computers and cameras. And my objective is like Casey Neistat fused with a world traveler. Is what I would like to do. You know, tell engaging stories. They don't have to be all about food. They don't have to all be about cycling. They're just a life. There was a guy that did there was a lot of inspirations for the tour, but there was one guy who did Cycling the Globe was his Facebook page, and Thomas Anderson, and he just posted a picture with a story, like 2 paragraphs every day. Today I went to so-and-so, it was hot weather, blah, blah, blah. And I always closed my eyes and looked at his picture and closed my eyes and envisioned his life that day. And I was like, oh my God, if he did that in video, that would be so neat. You know? So when I designed my tour, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell the daily story of a guy's life as he's traveling around the world. And so I made that entire, so I don't have a studio. I'm a mobile studio. I literally every night I would try to make the video, and you know, and that's what I found passion for. I don't necessarily have as much passion for this life sitting here in China doing what I'm doing today as I do on the road. I'm editing the old videos of me in China, and I'm looking at the sparkle in my eyes. I'm like, oh, Matt. Old Matt. I remember that.
That's the Matt I know.
That's the Matt I want to get to again, you know. But I mean, we're all having to do what we want to. I mean, shit. I realize we're running low on time, but I have a CCTV series of videos that are coming up that are just going to be phenomenal as soon as those are going to be started to be edited and delivered out. So that's. I'm biding my time right now because.
So hold on. You say CCTV videos in the sense that they're going to release on CCTV?
I started my Douyin, Toutiao, Hongshu, and Billy about 3 months ago. Anybody listening, it's JaYoe Ma Te, horse.
We'll put the
ma.
links in the description.
Yeah. JaYoe Ma Te. From that, I've become pretty popular right away. And that popularity has encouraged people like with media organizations to say, hey, would Matt be interested in doing this? Would Matt be interested in doing this? Because they see my personality and they say, oh, that guy would be good for this project or that project. CCTV Online. So it's the online platform of CCTV. CCTV is like the biggest, news media entity in China. So they came up to me and they said, we're doing a TV show, a travel show. And we like your personality. We like to be the chief character in the show. And it's ancient cities from over 1,000 years old. And what's awesome is that I've done a lot of media. I've done my own TV show. Very rarely did they tell you to give them input. But they said, where would you like to go?
Wow.
Whoa, so
Fun.
cool, right? So I was like, Zhangjiajie, and I was like, all these cool places. And they're like, well, Zhangjiajie, they were even thinking about having the mountain villages in Zhangjiajie. Zhangjiajie is like the Avatar Mountains, so they were thinking about the mountain villages, and those are ancient. Some of those are pretty ancient. And then I was going to be rappelling down the sides of those mountains,
Wow.
picking herbs and stuff.
Wow.
Really, really neat stuff. That ended up falling off. So I gave them 5 ideas for cities. They had 5 ideas for places. We ended up compromising Chaozhou, Lijiang, Chengdu, and Dunhuang. Dunhuang is that city in the deserts up north near Mongolia where there's a little oasis. It's on the Silk Road. It's like this really crazy thing. And so they put together this show, the show concept. So they gave me the opportunity to choose the places or at least have some input. Then they chose the 4 locations. Then the show itself was, we are going to videotape Matt vlogging in these places. The episodes, we're going to stay 3 days in every location. So 3 days in Chaozhou, 3 days Lijiang, Chengdu, and
Like
Dunhuang.
vlogging for JaYoe Nation, like doing your JaYoe Nation.
Vlogging for JaYoe Ma Te.
So you're still doing your own content.
So it's like a third-person perspective.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Dude.
It's kind of a mindfuck, dude.
So they're like, and it was I've got 1,400 videos on my YouTube channel. Each one's about 10 minutes long. You do the math. And I've been in front of a computer for about 4 hours each for every episode. You do the math. I know how to edit. I know what my personality is like. I know how to I'm like the best actor they could ever ask for, because so he's asking me, he's like, this street sells dumplings or whatever. Could you go talk to that shop owner and vlog it? Like me, personally. And then we'll walk around you and we will videotape you doing your thing. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, I did 1 million times.
It's like asking me to walk.
Yeah, breathe. Go breathe. Could you breathe over there for a second? Okay, you know. So I started like, oh, it was so amazing. Now, the other thing is that each city for this project is going to be encapsulated into a 7-minute episode. So we recorded in each city hours and hours of footage. Hours and hours and hours. And he's going to have to take all of that and trim it down to 7 minutes in every location. He's going to have so much stuff on the cutting room floor. And he told me, hey, Matt, you can have it. Oh. So he's got to finish his edit. But as soon as he's finished with it, I'm going to get there. Just tell you, in Dunhuang, they have these sand dunes that are like 200 meters tall. It's beautiful, beautiful sand dunes. It just turns out that the days that we went there, they were cloud seeding, because they, cloud seeding where they make it rain artificially. So it snowed there, which is very rare. So there's this snow powder covering over these huge dunes. It looks like something out of like this weird
Snow in the desert.
Snow in the desert.
Wow.
And the oasis is covered in snow, all of this stuff. The day we started, we went to this school. This school was popularized by a TikTok video that the morning routine, the morning routines in these Chinese schools, all the kids pile out and they do their morning Tai Chi or whatever their exercises. Well, this teacher wanted to do something cool. So she infused this like Kung Fu kind of like dance style into the morning routines. It was recorded by a couple of the students. It became super popular, millions of views on Douyin. So that was my first objective for the day, is to be taught that routine. So it was this kind of funny little dance. The evening, I spent the night on the dunes in Dunhuang in negative 14 degrees. It was so cold. Camel ride up to the dunes. Then we did dune buggies up and down the dunes.
Wow.
And then just before the sunset, the drone went up. They said, walk up as high as you can to that dune. We're going to film you doing the exercise as the sun goes down, and the drone's going to be around you. I mean, I would never be able to get this kind of content myself. I got to believe that he's only going to be able to use a certain few seconds of that scene, and then I'm going to be able to bring that into my vlog as soon as he's done. So that, I mean, I'm so geeked.
When's
about
it coming out?
I think about February or March, the show will come out. He's going to finish. He's on episode 3 of 4 right now. And then as soon as he's finished, he's going to give me the content. I'm going to start chugging through
which
it.
CCTV channel is it? It's online, you
CCTV
said, right?
online.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be easily to be shareable.
Great.
And,
That's awesome. But you know what? The haters are going to say.
Oh my God. There is no denying that I'm working with the government organization.
The attacks are coming. Be prepared
Already
for that.
done. They've already been launched.
The attacks are coming for this, for sure.
whatever.
Big time.
And you're a robot, and all they have to do is give you free video footage, and you just fall in line.
Yeah.
You're the white monkey.
Yeah, what should I do? Useful idiot. So look forward to that. I don't give a
sounds
shit
amazing.
what people think. I'm very geeked.
That
It
about
sounds
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, is like anytime I can travel to those kind of natural places and shoot is amazing.
He had this slider, like a 1 meter slider, and he has, because I looked over his shoulder at the content he was shooting. He's got some of me where I'm like looking off into the distance and the sun is like glinting off my head as the slider goes. I'm like, oh my God, that's like Hollywood,
Like
stuff.
cinematography.
like cinematic, stuff. I'm like, I don't have any of that stuff. You got to give me some of that stuff.
nice.
It's pretty cool.
Listen, Matt, it was a pleasure talking to you and meeting you. We got to do this again sometime.
Sure.
There's so many more things that we can get into. There really honestly are.
yeah.
For
And
sure.
especially in this day and age, I think the topics are going to be never ending. There's
Yeah.
always going to be some new events to kind of cover. So first of all, thank you again for coming on. And just some parting words from you. If you could kind of, based off of all your crazy, unique experiences traveling, and a lot of your kind of shifts in perspective throughout the years, if you could kind of leave some parting words or some words of wisdom that you would say to the citizens of the world out there who maybe aren't traveling as much as you are, what would you say?
The greatest joys in life are on the opposite side of risk. So not opposite side, on the far side of risk, right? So I have failed more times than most people have, and I am thankful for every one of them. You know, I think that people's fears of people and culture and so much and politics and all of these kind of crazy socialism, communism, and all of these kind of buzzwords that you are trained to hate those things. You are trained. You don't have to. Being objective requires opening your mind, and so travel, but don't do it like in a 5-star hotel. Get out there, get your hands dirty. Meet somebody that, you know, smile to everybody. Like one of my biggest things is smiling. You smile at as many people as you can, and you're going to make a difference in this world. So go out there, take risks, and spread the joy. JaYoe.
That is beautiful. And, you know, what I'm getting out of it is like try to, whatever way you can, try to seek true objectivity.
Yeah.
If that can't even be attained. But
Challenge yourself. Even if you don't believe, you know, like there's a lot of people out there that are so hardwired. Let's just soften those wires a little bit. you know?
Rearrange those wires a little bit.
Rearrange, you know?
All right, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Clinky, clinky.
Clinky.
All right, guys. That was Matt. Thank you guys for all listening. Be good. Be well. I'm Justin.
I'm Eric.
I'm Howie.
I'm Matt.
All right, guys.
Peace.
See you. Bye.